Good morning, sunshines. Good morning to you. Good morning to you. We're all in our places with sunshiny faces, and this is the way to start a new day. Today is the 29th anniversary of Lisa McPherson's untimely death, and everybody's going to be doing vigils today. I want to do a report of the crime that came out on Tampa Bay Times that I'm going to read through as a remembrance. And as soon as I get things switched over to that channel, I shall do that. It will be the first one that we're going to upload to Scientology Crimes. I don't have it set up to where I can upload directly, and I will, but we're going to put it on here, and then I will upload it to that channel, so that way it's saved, and I'll cut out our little pre-spiel. But I need to get back over to here that we're going to read. Good morning, Susan. Good morning, Cricket. Let me find it here. Yep, everybody's going to be having stuff today, so just here it is. Here's the Tampa Bay Times. Let me make it to where it is fitting on the screen correct. You did not make it late this morning. Good morning, Kathy. Good morning, Amy. I'm going to wait for a few more people to get in. I really hate it when other people do that, but we'll just say our good mornings this morning, and then I'll go into reading this. It's a little bit sobering news, but this is an excellent. I was going through all of the court cases for the Scientology crimes, and it certainly took me down a demon hole on all sorts of them. I found one, which I'm going to post all these to the Scientology crimes channel. I found one where they did a $200 million class action lawsuit back in the 80s. It got thrown out not because of the crimes, but because of the purview and the jurisdiction. And Amy, I cannot believe how many suits come from Massachusetts. Cannot believe how many there are. It's an incredible amount. Boston area must just really do a horrible job, horribler, or it's just easier to litigate from there, because it was pretty dang amazing how many there were. I need to get this to where it all fits on the screen. There we go. So today we're going to dedicate this to Scientology crimes. I will upload this over, and I'm going to read this article from Tampa Bay Times. Yeah, I was looking for some on that, Amy, and I didn't see any yet, but I'm sure we're going to find something that correlates for them. So let me find it. This was a Tampa Bay Times article from 2017. And this was in a series, which some of the series has been erased, but this was part 2 of 3 in the special report on the Church of Scientology, and it's titled Death in Slow Motion. And it's from the viewpoint of Marty Rathbun. Rest in peace, Lisa McPherson. Rest in peace. The night after Lisa McPherson died, the leader of the church of Scientology sent word for one of his top lieutenants to wait by a payphone at the Holiday Inn Surfside on Clearwater Beach. When Marty Rathbun answered the ringing phone in the lobby, David Miscavige let him have it. "Why aren't you all over this mess? The police are poking around. Do something." "Yes, sir," Rathbun said. McPherson, a 36-year-old parishioner in apparent good health, had spent 17 days in a guarded room at the church's Fort Harrison Hotel. Scientology staffers tried to nurse her out of her mental breakdown, but she became ill. She drew her last breaths in the back seat of a van as they drove her to the hospital in the next county. Her death on December 5, 1995, triggered 9 years of investigations, lawsuits, and worldwide press coverage. Alive on the internet, it stains Scientology's reputation still. Yes, it does. Now, for the first time, comes an inside account from the upper ranks of Scientology. I want to name names, the who, what, when, and why, and I want to kick some ass. So this is being uploaded on the Scientology Crimes. From the man who directed the church's handling of the case. Rathbun, who defected from Scientology's staff in late 2004, admits that as prosecutors and attorneys for McPherson's family prepared subpoenas, he ordered the destruction of incriminating evidence about her care at the Fort Harrison. Yep, Lara was right. Everybody that Jamie and everybody was talking about, all of those shredders. He and others who have left the church disclosed for the first time that Miscavige was involved in McPherson's Scientology counseling. Just weeks before her mental breakdown, they say it was the leader himself who determined that she had reached an enhanced mental state that Scientologists call clear. Hey Joe, hey Antics. Guys, I'm reading this and I don't have the comment on there, so I'm sorry if I miss any of your comments. For years, Rathbun was adamant that the church did nothing wrong. Now he says that McPherson's care was a debacle from the start. It was a perfect storm of incompetence and irresponsibility within the church, he said. You shouldn't and couldn't justify it. He disclosed that the church was prepared to pay almost any price to make the case go away. He said he sent an emissary to McPherson's funeral, what a jerk, in Dallas with authority to give her mother, Fanny, whatever she wanted. The approach was rebuffed because the family didn't trust the church. You think? Whether it was financially or any other thing, we're taking care of that woman because it was on our watch. If she needed $5 million, we would have come up with $5 million. Church officials say Rathbun is a bitter ex-member who inflated his importance in Scientology and whose motives are suspect. They say Miscavige demoted Rathbun in 2003 in part for his missteps he made in the McPherson case. A settlement agreement with the woman's family forbids them providing specifics, said Monique Yingling. There's one name besides Marty Rathbun and David Miscavige. Monique Yingling. We're naming names, you guys. A longtime Scientology attorney and friend of Miscavige. Still, she said that Rathbun botched the case from the start and possibly caused the whole thing. Point fingers, deflect. A little fender bender. McPherson joined Scientology in Dallas, her hometown, when she was 18. She worked for a marketing company owned by a Scientologist friend. The company moved to Clearwater in 1994 to be near the church's spiritual headquarters, and McPherson came too. Shortly before 6 p.m. on November 18, 1995, her Jeep Cherokee ran into a boat trailer stopped in traffic on South Fort Harrison Avenue. A place, Fort Harrison. McPherson, frantic, walked up to the driver pulling the trailer, put her hands on his shoulders, and asked, "Where's the people? Where's the people?" Firefighters had her move her car to the side of Bellevue Boulevard. She signed a statement saying she did not want medical care. As officers and paramedics tended to other duties, they saw McPherson had stripped off her clothes and was walking along Bellevue. They took her to Morton Plant Hospital, where doctors discussed having her committed for psychiatric evaluation under Florida's Baker Act of 5150. But Scientology considers psychiatry and psychiatric drugs evil. The church believes it offers less intrusive and more humane treatment for problems of the human mind. Adamant that McPherson not be exposed to psychiatry, about 10 church members showed up at the hospital and said they would take care of her. So she said she wanted to leave with her friends and signed out against a doctor's advice. Church staffers checked her into the Fort Harrison and assigned her to room 174 of the Cabanas, a group of less formal rooms facing the street behind the hotel. 4 members of the church medical office were assigned to watch McPherson. Staffers from various departments were pulled in to help, including a payroll officer, a file clerk, a secretary, a personnel director, security guards, and 2 librarians. What a crew. Here's a name. Supervising was Janice Johnson, a doctor unlicensed in Florida who was a church medical officer. For more than 2 weeks, they tried to calm, feed, and medicate McPherson. They gave her chloral hydrate, a mild sedative. A staff dentist, unlicensed in Florida, mixed aspirin, Benadryl, and orange juice in a syringe and squirted it down her throat. I want to know that name. The staffers kept logs of what they did, trying to calm McPherson. A staffer tried to force 3 valerian root caplets down her throat, but McPherson spit them out. My idea of closing her nose so she has to swallow so she can breathe through her mouth is only marginally successful, the staffer wrote. Come on. McPherson slapped and screamed at her caretakers. She babbled, she vomited her food, she destroyed the ceiling lamp and broke glass in the bathroom. She jumped off the bed, fell on the floor, ran around the room. She pondered a light bulb, saying, "You have to follow the light, as light is life." She was like an ice cube, one caretaker wrote. She refused to eat and spit out everything she took. Her breath was foul, had a fever to my touch. By the evening of December 5th, McPherson had lost about 12 pounds. Johnson, the church doctor, telephoned David Minkoff, a Scientologist and a doctor at Columbia Newport Richey Hospital. Minkoff said to take McPherson to Morton Plant Hospital down the street. But Alan Kartuzinski, a church counseling supervisor, told Minkoff he feared that McPherson would be exposed to psychiatric care at Morton Plant, and Johnson assured Minkoff that McPherson's condition was not life-threatening. Like he knew. What they didn't tell Minkoff, McPherson was limp and unable to walk. Her breathing was labored, her eyes fixed and unblinking. Her face was gaunt, a sign of severe dehydration. Taking a break just to make sure. Hey, Irish Mart. Hi, Nancy Drew. Minkoff agreed to see her. With McPherson in the back seat of the van, her caretakers drove 45 minutes to the Pasco Hospital, passing 4 other hospitals on the way. They rolled her into the ER, splayed across a wheelchair. She had no pulse, no heartbeat, and was not breathing. Minkoff pronounced McPherson dead. He took Johnson aside and yelled at her. "I was shocked out of my wits," he said later. "I really wasn't in the mode of finding out what happened. I was more in the mode of, how could you bring this person up to me like this? Oh, boo-hoo." Miscavige's role. Scientology employs a unique brand of counseling called auditing. In a quiet room, an auditor asks the parishioner prescribed questions while monitoring a device called an electronic psychometer or an e-meter. Scientologists say there is a charge associated with areas of upset in a person's life, such as marital conflict or a childhood accident. When such topics come up, the e-meter needle responds. The act of locating the troubling episode dissipates the charge and the needle floats back and forth. The person is supposed to feel better. One goal is to reach clear, a state where the mind's negative images are gone and the person is to be rid of all fears, anxieties, and irrational thoughts. John Travolta, Kirstie Alley, and Tom Cruise are among the celebrities who have extolled the benefits of Scientology. Parishioners from around the globe travel to Clearwater to be audited by the best. Scientologists come from the deluxe accommodations and the top flight Class 12 auditors, whose services, Rathbun said, cost $1,000 an hour. But back in 1995, Rathbun says even the church thought most of its Class 12 auditors were not worth the money. They were burned out, their sessions rote and uninspired, like a doctor with a poor bedside manner. These guys are all overweight, they're obese, they've got back problems, they don't sleep enough, he said, and one of the problems I realized is for 15-20 years they're like cash cows. He said they were just getting milked nonstop. Rathbun and the others say Miscavige was in Clearwater in 1995 to launch the Golden Age of Tech initiative aimed at raising the quality and precision of auditing at Scientology's Mecca. Rathbun said he was assigned to help. Miscavige would look in on parishioner auditing sessions from a control room with video feeds from multiple counseling rooms. One of the parishioners was Lisa McPherson. He's watching live with the video cameras every session that she's in and supervising, saying, "Do this next, do that next," and so forth, said Tom DeVocht, another person, a top church executive in Clearwater who has since left the church and is speaking out for the first time. Is he in any of our communities? Is he still alive? The folder containing records of McPherson's auditing history came in and out of Miscavige's office, said DeVocht, whose office was next door and who had overseen a renovation of the leader's living quarters. Don Jason, then a high-ranking officer at Clearwater Spiritual Headquarters, said he saw Miscavige take off his headphones and say McPherson had achieved the state of clear in a previous session. Jason, 45, said he saw the leader write a note that McPherson's auditor would read to her, informing her of her new status. Scientologists who are clear don't go psychotic, Jason said. So for a person to have a breakdown so soon after was a huge problem. Church officials say DeVocht and Jason are wrong. I can tell you that's utterly, totally false, said Angie Blankenship. I know Serge talks about her quite often. A top administrator in Clearwater from 1996 to 2003. I was here. Chairman of the board, Miscavige, wasn't even here at Flag. Lambaste during that time. He's a liar. It never happened. Yingling and church spokesman Tommy Davis also said Miscavige was not in Clearwater at the time, and they say they have minutes of meetings he attended in California to prove it. They also question how DeVocht and Jason almost 14 years later, could remember anything about a woman who was then just another parishioner that died. Jason said the moment stood out because staffers require special training and refresher training to be able to identify when someone becomes clear. So it did strike me as like, wow, that Miscavige had that expertise. Taking a throat break, checking in. Hi, Rika. Hi, T. Good morning, you guys. Not only that, I was standing right next to him when it happened, said Jason, who left the church in 1996, but still finds Scientology valuable. Don't know how that happens. This is a huge deal, Devac said of Miscavige's involvement. There's no way not to remember it. Devac said he worked closely with Miscavige during that time. He said the leader zeroed in on McPherson because she was having issues with her counseling and was the friend of a prominent church member. He said he saw Miscavige view McPherson's auditing sessions through a video feed and write notations in her counseling folder. I watched him personally, Devac said. A whole bunch of people watched him personally. The church's representatives said there was no notations by Miscavige in McPherson's file. In any case, they say, let's put different things in there. Miscavige would have been qualified to supervise McPherson's case had he been so inclined. He is an expert in every field, said Jessica Feshbach, a church spokesman. I'm sorry, I'm having trouble reading this morning. Rathbun recalled walking through a hallway to the auditing rooms at the Fort Harrison and a woman bursting through a door. She's going, "Ah! Yahoo!" She's screaming at the top of her lungs, he said. It was McPherson, cheering about the news that she had been deemed clear. Her accomplishment was celebrated in a ceremony at the Fort Harrison in September 1995. By mid-November, she would be back at the hotel babbling to her caretakers. The introspection rundown. When Rathbun learned that McPherson had died, he interviewed the 15 to 20 Scientologists who had cared for her. We need those names. I think we have those names somewhere. It was like walking into a disaster area. They all looked devastated. They lacked sleep. Some of them had scratches and bruises from getting hit by Lisa. All of them were extremely emotionally distraught because each one of them put it on their shoulders that they had done something wrong. I think you guys put it on their shoulders. Their feelings were justified, Rathbun said. The whole thing was done wrong. I can't tell you what a technical crime this was, in terms of Scientology methods. The caretakers had given McPherson an introspection rundown, a procedure created by Scientology founder L. Ron Hubbard. The goal is to isolate and calm a psychotic person enough to be audited. She is to be kept in a silent environment with no one around to re-stimulate mental images that might upset her. Yet church staffers came and went from McPherson's room, as did guards using walkie-talkies. Rathbun said. One staffer cried in a corner. Others held McPherson down while trying to medicate and feed her. Instead of calming, McPherson grew agitated and self-destructive during her 17-day stay. Rathbun said he has participated in several introspection rundowns, and none lasted more than a day or two. He said it was obvious to him that McPherson was the victim of out-tech, a term for Scientology malpractice. Rathbun had another problem. Kardazinski, the auditing supervisor, and Johnson, the medical officer, had lied to Clearwater Police. They said McPherson had not received an introspection rundown, and they said that there was nothing unusual about her stay. That's the hand I'm dealt. I've got 2 false sworn statements to law enforcement agents, on top of how badly the Scientologists handled McPherson. It was such a dog's breakfast of facts. He said his first instinct was to do something entirely out of character. I was truly, sincerely wished that I was in a position where I could just follow my heart, because my heart in December 1995 was to go straight to the state attorney's office and say, "My God, there's been a terrible accident. We want to take responsibility." Two things out of that. That was never going to happen. And two, I really take offense when they talk about my God or say my God. I know it's just a statement, but they don't believe in God. So who are they saying my God to? Who are they referring to? Okay, I digress. I'm sorry. But that wasn't in the playbook. His nearly 2 decades immersed in Scientology culture had taught him, when under siege, close ranks, never admit fault. Right. He said he wrote an internal report, a KR, that included church procedures had been violated, but the mistakes did not contribute to McPherson's death. He put the report in a manila envelope and sealed it the way he learned years earlier as a 20-something newbie handling Hubbard's correspondence. Slice the seams with a razor, cover them with tape, and melt the tape so that no one can open the envelope without tearing it. Then off the envelope went to the church's California base. So he crossed state lines. For a year, not a word about McPherson's death had appeared in the media. But in mid-December 1996, details of Clearwater police investigation leaked to reporters. An autopsy report from Pinellas Pasco medical examiner Joan Wood concluded that McPherson died of a blood clot in her left lung caused by bed rest and severe dehydration. Rathman coordinated the public response, which he now acknowledges began with lies. Church spokesman said McPherson had been at the Fort Harrison for rest and relaxation. They said she could come and go as she pleased. They denied that she had received an introspection rundown. McPherson suddenly fell ill and participated in decision about her care, church officials said. Her death was an unfortunate accident, unrelated to anything Scientology did. Wood spoke out, saying her autopsy contradicted the church's statements. The veteran medical examiner said there was nothing sudden or accidental about McPherson's death. Her health deteriorated gradually over about 10 days, and she probably was unconscious toward the end. The church sued Wood for access to her records. A Scientology called her liar, 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 hateful liar. McPherson, that's really professional. McPherson family sued the church for wrongful death, and the Pinellas Pasco State Attorney's Office investigated whether to file criminal charges. Wonder if that could ever be reopened. Destruction of evidence. In early 1997, as investigators closed in, Rathman met with church staff in Scientology offices in Hollywood, California. They combed the daily logs that McPherson's caretakers kept during her 17 days at the Fort Harrison. 3 entries particularly troubled Rathman. One contained a bizarre sexual reference McPherson had made. Another revealed that no one thought to remove that mirror from the room of a psychotic woman bent on harming herself. The third was one caretaker's opinion that the situation was out of control and that McPherson needed to see a doctor. Rathman concluded the notes had to go. I said, "Lose 'em," and walked out of the room. He recalled, adding that the decision to destroy the records was his own. Scapegoat. Nobody told me to do it, and I did it. The truth is the truth, and right now I'm going to confession, and I really think it's something that hurt the church more than it hurt the people that were trying to get recompense. But it is what it is, and I know it could possibly be a crime. In a recent interview, State Attorney Bernie McCabe said it was clear the records were missing because the church handed over entries for every day of McPherson's stay except the final 2 hours before she died. That the church appeared to be hiding something only fed McCabe's sense that something was amiss. Prosecuting Rathman is not an option because the time to bring destruction of evidence charges expires after 3 years. McCabe said, "We're done." Stress ratchets up. On November 13, 1998, McCabe's office charged the church's Clearwater entity with 2 felonies, criminal neglect, and practicing medicine without a license. The church now faces the prospect of trial and embarrassing testimony in both criminal and civil court. Miscavige delegated dealing with lawyers and reporters to Rathman and to Scientology's chief spokesman, Mike Rinder. Mike wasn't mentioned until right now, but the church leader kept hold of the controls, working to forge Scientology's message from behind the scenes. Rathman revealed that while he and Rinder conducted phone interviews, Miscavige often was at their side, directing what to say and gesturing wildly when he thought they got it wrong. A key legal issue in the McPherson family wrongful death lawsuit was whether Miscavige could be added as a defendant. Church lawyers argued that he should not be named in the suit because he dealt only with ecclesiastical matters. The family countered that Miscavige totally controls and micromanages all of Scientology. In December 1999, a Tampa judge ruled that Miscavige could be added as a defendant. From the church leader, it was a big snapping point, Rathman said. That was like the explosion of all explosions, that he was now potentially going to be deposed and his name would be embroiled in that litigation. He became progressively more antagonistic, violent, irrational. William C. Walsh, a Washington, D.C. human rights lawyer who had represented Scientology for years, said the account is far-fetched. One thing I do know about David Miscavige, and I've known him from December 1999 on and way before that, Walsh said, and I never saw any change in his personality when he became a defendant in the case. He didn't become more antagonistic. He did not become more violent, and he's never been irrational. Said Yingling, he wasn't happy to be a defendant, that's true, but he took it in stride with everything else that was happening in the case. Kept his tiaras in, didn't he? Rinder and Rathman recall an afternoon on the 3rd floor of a small office building overlooking North Fort Harrison Avenue. When they say Miscavige attacked Rinder, they say the leader shouted obscenities at Rinder, grabbed him, and while holding him in a headlock, twisted his neck and threw him to the floor. Of the dozens of attacks Rinder said he endured, this one was the most painful. I remember my neck was out of place, and for maybe 30 minutes I couldn't speak because my larynx had been squashed against the back of my throat, he said. Clamped in a headlock, Rinder said his thoughts tracked a familiar arc. What did I do to cause this? When Miscavige dresses you down or worse, punishes you physically, you get into trying to figure out what you have done to him, Rinder said. And that's the thing with the beatings. What did I do to cause this to happen to me? Over-prepare, attack, attack. Reminiscent of how Scientology fought the IRS to restore its tax exemption, the church would not be outworked defending itself from the criminal charges in the McPherson case. Scientology spent millions of dollars, and church lawyers filed thousands of pages of medical studies and consultant reports that said the McPherson care at the Fort Harrison could not have caused her death. The case collapsed after Wood, the medical examiner, unexpectedly changed her official finding on the manner of McPherson's death, previously undetermined. She changed it in February 2000 to an accident. Prosecutors dropped the charges 4 months later, citing Wood's conflicting and confused interpretation of the evidence. Conspiracy theorists suggest that the church somehow got to Wood. Rathman denies it. He says the medical examiner changed her conclusion in the face of the reams of scientific information from church experts. Roll eyes, yeah, right. There was no blackmail on her, Rathman said. There was no intelligence. It absolutely was all evidence. I swear to God. There we go, swearing to God again. Wood reached it at her home, declined to comment, of course. McCabe said it was his impression that evidence and expert testimony swayed Wood. One thing you quickly come to realize when dealing with Scientologists is that they are persistent, he said, and they were persistent with her. In May 2004, 4 years after the criminal charges were dropped, the church settled with McPherson's family, ending their lawsuit, the civil one. The terms remain secret. In a speech to international associations of Scientologists, Miscavige proclaimed victory over government officials, over the press, and over others who tried to use McPherson's death to bring down the church. He said the roots of the attack stretched from the German government, which opposed Scientology, to the Clearwater Police, which investigated the church for 2 decades. They were just looking for anything to get us, he told the crowd. We always knew we would win. Quoting Hubbard, he listed the qualities that would always hold Scientology in good stead: constant alertness, constant willingness to fight back. Winning but losing. Though Scientology prevailed on the legal front, the McPherson case set back a long-running effort by the church to cultivate a benign mainstream image. Among the details that emerged in McPherson's last years, she had spent at least $176,700 on Scientology services and had $5,773 in the account she kept at the church. She died with $11 in her savings account. The case reignited passions about Scientology and its practices, bringing pro- and anti-church protests back to the streets of Clearwater after years of relative calm. Some people paid a price. Minkoff, the Scientologist doctor who pronounced McPherson dead, was disciplined by the state of Florida. Without having met McPherson, he had written prescriptions for her during her stay in the Fort Harrison. Should have had more than just that. Kardazinski, the supervisor in charge of her stay at Fort Harrison, was banished for years to work in the church's laundry in Clearwater. Scientology parishioners were called on to dig deeper into their pockets. The church's Clearwater entity, the Flag Service organization, typically took in $1.5 to $2 million a week. Rathman and others said, providing a picture of Scientology's revenues never before disclosed. Miscavige decided the exorbitant legal bills from the McPherson case were to be paid from the flag operation. Rathman said so church registrars urged parishioners to come in for more auditing and other services. It was a matter of step things up, get people in, snappity, folks. They brought in a lot of money during that period. Yet another group would pay in a different way. According to Rathburn and other high-ranking defectors, Miscavige grew more and more violent and erratic as the McPherson case wore on. Said Rathburn, working under David Miscavige from 2000 forward was a steadily deteriorating situation. Then we go into some resources and the other parts of the thing. Thank you for allowing me to do that. Rest in peace. I am just seeing that I'm... Hey, Kirby's mom. Hi, Scientology up north. I really found that article very interesting. At Congress, there has been a list of all the crimes and deaths been read out before, maybe a min each. Just reading out some of them. Congress is doing that. I've totally missed chat, you guys. Yeah, I wish it was. I mean, how they minimized her death. It was all about the money. Even that article, deflect, dissuade, it happened, I did it, taking, at least he tried to take responsibility, but it wasn't because he was responsible. It was to get it off from Miscavige. Oh, yeah. Oh, you mean at any of the meetings today? Yeah, that's a great idea. Yeah, yeah, that is a great idea. I wonder if I had 1 minute, how many rest in peace names? I could take all the rest in peace names off from Liz Gale's list. That's a great idea, Joe Buchanan. I think I'm going to do that. I'm going to put a link to this article. In some of this article is just not available anymore on the Tampa Bay Times. I'm surprised I got this one to pop up. Yeah, I did Scientology up north. I am trying to pull out all of the ones for Europe for you. So that way you have your own little folder. Yeah, there was as I said, I'll cut it off there for the Scientology crimes. And I put some folders. I haven't uploaded any of them, but the folders that I have for the Scientology crimes channel are, it's all under court cases and child abuse, elderly abuse, fair gaming, harassment, private eyes, financial